I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a moment of silence, please. Okay, I want to thank you, everybody that's here, and everybody will be watching or is watching now. I'll start roll call. I'll start with Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Mike Smith is here. Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Mike Stephen.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Culberson.
Here.
Public comment. We had none on the thing. Mark was there. Pretty okay. Administrative business. Mark, do you have anything?
Yeah, I did want to bring up something, and I'm probably going to beat one of the commissioners to that. The state finally approved, and I believe the governor signed off on the storm damage for accessory buildings. So I've talked with the county councilor and also the appraiser. They did make a list of all the properties that were impacted back when it happened. So if you are all comfortable with it, because ultimately it will come back to you for approval, it's basically the same process they would have used for their primary structures. The county appraiser can send them a letter with the application directly to the properties impacted, and then schedule time with them to help them fill out the applications if need be, and then we'll bring it back to the board for approval. They have until the end of December of this year to get those applications submitted based on the new legislation. So, and unless I hear otherwise, I will assume that's the path we're taking, and I'll get the appraiser started on that process.
I would think so.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm sure wants to follow the law.
Yep. And you did beat me to the punch.
Anything else, Mark?
Just a reminder that we have a special meeting on Friday to review SUP.
9 a.m.
Yes.
Okay.
I got some, Mike, too, when you get it.
Okay. Let me get one thing real quick here. So, Commissioner Stephen and I will be out next week, so we'll need somebody to fill in for chair. So I need to get a motion and get that approved.
I move that Commissioner Cos fill in as the chairperson.
Second. Any discussion? Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Okay, Jeff, sorry, go ahead.
I gave you guys a map that shows a triangular shaped parcel that's one of the FEMA buyout lots. Back when FEMA was buying out all the houses that flooded constantly, this is one of the tracts. And what FEMA would do then is deed it to the municipality that controlled it. So if it's in the city, it went to the city. If it's in the county, it went to the county. We can never build on it. We can never sell it. We can never do anything with the property except let an adjacent owner farm it or do whatever with it.
Right.
The neighbor reached out to me and asked if they could take care of this place. So I'm going to ask that we lease this to the adjacent neighbor. I think we have to go through a formality. So Mr. Van Paris was going to take care of that and then come back to you with a lease agreement. I think we have to publish it to make sure everybody's got a fair chance at it. But this is, you can kind of see in the photo, there's a lot of debris dumped on this triangle.
Yeah.
We're going to put up no dumping signs for him, and then he agreed to take care of all the debris, haul it off, smooth it out, seed it down. So if anybody wants to do that, they can bid on doing that, but I don't think anybody else is going to want to. So we're going to create a lease for the neighbor.
I wouldn't want to do it.
And we've done this before on a couple other parcels. Most of these FEMA buyout lots are landlocked, like a 1 acre tract in the center of a parcel. You can't get to it from a road, so the adjacent property owners usually always take care of it. They usually just drag a plow right across it where the old house used to be. This one's a little different. It does have road frontage, but that's why I think nobody's taking care of it next to it because of all the debris on it. So,
David, Mark?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the county has entered into a similar lease for a property in the Easton Township area, whereby the adjacent property owner, they farm the property. I think they cut hay off of it. But the real thing is they keep the property from becoming a nuisance. Otherwise, we would have to send county crews up there to cut it. I did speak with the proposed or the adjoining property owner in this case. People are beginning to use it as an informal landfill. They're dumping debris on it. He has taken some steps to clean it up, but I think he's offered to, in essence, take over the care of the property, would take it off our hands. And Commissioner Culberson is correct. You are allowed to put up a pole barn. You are allowed to farm it, and that's it. So quite frankly, currently the property, I would consider it almost a nuisance. If you can get somebody to clean it up, keep it clean, it'd be to the county's advantage.
So, Mark, we need to go out get everybody up.
Well, we'll just make sure, from a staff's perspective, if you'll give us direction to allow us to lease that property out, we'll make sure we follow the necessary steps to make that happen.
Any concerns on that?
Well, I was hoping he was bringing us for ribbon cutting for a new business out there.
I'm not going to mention which one, but well, yeah, I was going to tell Jeff. Vicki, you okay with that?
That's fine.
Mike, everybody? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, anything else? We move on. Okay. Consent agenda. Any items need to be removed from the consent agenda? Not, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Motion is second. Any discussion? Commissioner Collins?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Okay, moving right along, formal board action. Excuse me. Consider a motion to approve a funding request for the Leavenworth County Child Abuse Prevention Council in the amount of $5,000. Do we have someone here who'd like to speak on that? Yeah, John, come on up.
John.
Mr. Bradford, come on up. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning to all commissioners.
Morning.
It is my pleasure to be here again. And I'm also with Kathy Sneller, who is with CASA, and Margaret Howards, who is the vice chair on the council with me. Our mission as a coalition, and you have the briefing slides in front of you, we are a coalition of agencies and individuals who work together to prevent and address the needs of the county through education and training, interagency collaboration, financial support to qualified efforts. And in doing our mission, we do a lot of training sessions throughout the year on various topics such as human trafficking, sex abuse, bullying, and suicide prevention. We have an upcoming event in October which will address bullying and suicide prevention. And these are very well attended by the community and very beneficial. We bring in guest speakers to do the presentations. Some of them are from the state, and we have had people come nationally into Leavenworth to do the presentations. But what we provide to the community is many grants that range in amounts from $250 up to $500. Recipients are allowed to apply for one grant per year, not to exceed $500. The one that comes to my mind right off is while I was serving as a board member of the Alliance Against Family Violence, they had a washing machine went out. And they immediately applied for the grant, and we got them a new washing machine for roughly $500 and some change. And that was bought here locally from Maytag. But we provide travel and boarding expenses for members when they attend the Governor's Conference, which is held once a year. And any funding that is needed by our guest speakers when they come in from out of town. And we do community awareness, and if you've driven around town lately, you will see yard signs that says April is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. And nationally, April is designated as the month of the child. So it works out really good. We previously got our funding sources from our annual fundraiser, which was the annual breakfast at 10 pennies. Cindy was gracious enough to volunteer her facility. She got the food for free from Cisco as a donation, and politicians always went there and served the food. And I think we've all been there and done that several times. And it was a lot of fun. But Cindy came to me and said she was not going to be able to continue to do that due to COVID, large groups, and labor issues. She was having a hard time keeping staff, and that's true for most all the restaurants in town.
It is.
I would not want to be in a restaurant business myself. But that normally generated to us $4,000 to $5,000, which was sufficient to get us through the year and provide sufficient mini grants to the people who asked for them. And we also just recently did a mini grant to CASA for $500, I believe it was last month. And that went to, are you familiar with that?
I know in the past this has gone for Folks for Darkness to Light. We've used it for furniture and other supplemental things that we've needed that other grants don't cover.
And I believe if Kelly briefed me on it yesterday, it was something having to do with security training, and they had to go up to Topeka to get the training. So that covered that expense. And we do get a few private donations from citizens, but I wouldn't want to bet my operation on citizen donations. They don't come in that often. So what we're here for today is basically say we'd like to supplement what we were taking in. And I might also add, when my discussion with Cindy at Tenpenny, she has suggested that we go do the same setup that she was providing with June at Northland. Well, then I found out that June's going out of business, and she's going to sell the building, and that option went out. The other option is Pullman is insufficient space, and the depot is not large enough. And when you take something like what we do at that breakfast, and it's exclusive to a select group, they're basically shutting their business down just for us, and it's a losing proposition for them.
Mr. Bradford, do you think, if the commissioners did this year, you think you'll be able to find a place next year so we could start doing this again and continue?
We're looking to.
Okay.
The problem that we identified as asking the county to fund us was we lose visibility in the community. And people start realizing that, we don't exist.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'd love for it to be. So next year, if you can't do it this year, next year we find a place that we could do the serving and help you all with that again. I think it is.
We do want to continue.
Okay.
So this I'm sorry.
That fact, losing awareness, is what drove us to say, let's put out yard signs, because it was Month of the Child.
Understood.
So we spent $500 and said 550 yard signs, and believe it or not, I was shocked when I was in the days of putting out yard signs and campaigning. I think I was buying yard signs for $3.
Those days are over.
$9.
I can tell you right now, those days are over, John.
They're not cheap anymore.
No, sir, they're not. Mike.
A couple questions. Is this for the current fiscal year, or is this for next year? Is what you're wanting the funding for? You want immediate funding?
It would be beneficial, yes. If the money's available, yes.
Well, no, I mean, you can talk to the county administrator about that, but normally these are handled through our budget process, and this would be outside of the budget process.
Yes.
Other question I had is, what is the trend in child abuse within Leavenworth County? Do we have statistics on that?
I don't have any statistics available. right now.
Okay.
And it's always an issue.
Yeah, I just did.
The rates have gone up statistically across the country.
Since COVID. Well, that's what I had read an article about that,
Yeah.
but I didn't know if there was any objective.
Suicides have gone up. Child abuse. A lot of people will say, well, it's because the family is restricted to the house, and people are not getting away from the house, and they're staying home, and disagreements happen. And
Do you guys work with the local school districts?
with counselors.
Well,
Okay.
where would the money come from, Mark?
Well, Commissioners, we receive these requests on a fairly regular basis that are mid-year, and I usually give my lecture about it's best to do these during the budget process. There are an unlimited number of very deserving entities out there in the county, like this one, and or other, like I said, unlimited number of others. So the board in the past has been very judicious with their money and has made most of these requests be part of the budget. However, as you know, we do include a small amount in your annual budget for mid-year requests like this.
Well, when you get an isolated thing, I think the effort that they put out to try to have the dinner, then all of a sudden the restaurants all over the county the way they are probably wasn't directly, they weren't directly responsible for that. I'd sure like to see them be able to pick it up and handle their own down the line, but my feeling is that this is a good cause and it serves a good purpose.
And can I add that one of the things that I think that John didn't mention, and I think that is an important thing to add, is that the Child Abuse Prevention Council is an organization I personally can say that I've belonged to for decades, and I stopped being able to participate because it happens at the same time as the commission meetings. They provide for free the mandated reporter training for the county, which is a really important thing and that's also like our EMS employees can avail themselves of their continuing education, mandated reporter training, the law enforcement. I mean, there's so many different organizations, educators, the people that can get some of their CEUs for the mandated reporter training. That's a huge benefit to our city and county employees, both educational people. So that's a big plus, and that's one of the things that they do and have available a couple of times a year, CEUs, with the trainings that are offered because of the quality of the people that are providing the trainings. They also have assisted with, and the people that are participate in, because I've done it with our cohorts, the suicide prevention training, gatekeeper training, and things like that. So there's a lot of important things that the council assists with. So I'm just going to give a little bit of plug of some of the important things that actually happens, and it's an all-volunteer group. So,
Jeff, you have any comments?
And I might add that the next mandated training program is tomorrow night.
Yep.
And
It's very important.
At the Guidance Center.
At the Guidance Center, it starts at 6 o'clock. And if you have never attended one, it would be beneficial to just come and sit through it for an hour and a half, and see what goes on.
It's 2 hours.
2 hours.
Okay. Thank you. Jeff, do you have any comments on it?
What time was that?
6 o'clock at the Guidance Center.
Do you have anything else?
Just a question. We just awarded funds for the alcohol grant. Would something like this be eligible through that program? I know it's prevention and educate.
Yeah, I would have to. I mean, I think we'd have to look at the
Good
training
question, though.
and some of the other things they provide, but it might be. I mean, just from the sounds of it, I don't think that it would be.
Well,
But-
it's
It depends on the
it's
type.
kind of confusing
I don't
what's
think it-
eligible and what's not. To me, it is. I don't know.
We still need to
Maybe
do it.
anybody else.
Yeah.
It doesn't qualify for
It
888.
doesn't qualify.
Mike? Do you
I
have-
wish it would.
I'm
and they
okay.
could apply next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
it doesn't apply. It doesn't qualify for 888 funds.
Maybe they'll change the rules on that.
Anything else this week?
No, this is very worth. I
In
support
that
this
ca-
100%.
In that case, I'd like to make a motion to approve funding request for Leavenworth County Child Abuse Prevention Council in the amount of $5,000.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any more discussion? Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
You're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Good seeing you. Okay, next item is consider a motion to direct staff to draft an agreement with the City of Linwood for a water line project to match ARPA funds received.
Commissioners, in your packet, you have a letter from the City of Linwood requesting $50,000 to assist with a water line project. They've received a grant, it sounds like, for half of it. The other half they are funding internally. This would be a qualified expenditure through ARPA funds, and if approved, I would anticipate it would come from the $500,000 that y'all have set aside.
Linwood has their own water department, Mark.
Yes.
They produce their own.
They have old water lines from years and years ago.
It just surprised me.
I know, but so do a lot of water districts in the county, and I don't want to get into that.
Well, this is a municipality, though, and
So
we did say that
they-
our municipalities, City of Easton, City of Linwood, we'd also consider grant applications for the municipalities. We didn't take any applications. As far as I know, Mark, we didn't get any applications from water districts.
We had
A lot of them reached
Well,
out.
we didn't accept.
a nearly unlimited amount of inquiries about money from water districts, and some maybe 4 or 5 times just per one. And each time the response to them was that the county's ARPA funds were being utilized for infrastructure projects that we had internally, or where we could work with local municipalities to extend services that would impact future growth.
Yeah, and I'm on the same page as Commissioner Smith. You know, in the beginning, I encouraged the water districts, all the water districts in my district, to put in for ARPA funds. And then our Public Works showed us how we're way behind on funding bridges in the county. We need to replace 2 or 3 bridges a year. Otherwise, we're going to have to start shutting bridges down. We only have enough funding to do 1 bridge a year. So if we don't use the ARPA funds for mostly county bridges, we're going to be shutting bridges down in the near future. So it's just not enough money to go around is the problem. And I didn't want to get into, if we're not going to do it for all the water districts, which I was hoping we could, then I didn't want to open the door for 1 or 2, and then that's not fair. But this does look like it's a city project instead of a water district project. So we are spreading some of the money across the cities like we designated.
That's why I was asking, is it city run
Yeah.
or is it water district?
And it's, the updating of these lines is going to, I don't know, maybe in the city of Leavenworth, there's still some of those ancient lines, but these are all old lead lines, and this is going to be a really benefit to the city of Linwood. And you wouldn't think a small amount like $50,000 would be a tremendous shot in the arm, but it is going to
Mike,
really
would
help
this be
them.
any kind of economic, we're replacing, are we extending, or are they, is that anything that, as far as going to benefit?
But eventually, they're considering the annexation west down Golden Road towards County Road 1. But this would be within the city.
This is just true
within the
replacing
city,
lines
yeah.
right now. Okay.
So,
No industrial.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
What is there, 10 or 11 water districts in the county, counting the private owned water company?
I think there's 13 if you count like the state prison and a couple of other ones.
Oh, I didn't even count that.
Yeah, there's 13.
The City of Leavenworth's line is
Well,
private.
yeah, but it's Leavenworth Water Department's really not the city.
Yeah, it's the
Separate
private,
board.
right,
And then,
Like Lando.
right.
then you got City Easton also produces water.
Oh.
We gave Linwood that $90,000 for their community building. We haven't done anything for City Easton.
well, every city is eligible to make application, and we've set aside a certain amount of money for matching, and we certainly are matching the city of Basel with a large sum that includes sewer, and which is water. So this is a very
What
small
sewer are we
amount.
doing in Basel?
That's isn't that part of the matching funds?
The funds that were contemplated for Baser's 155th Street project are ARPA-related funds, and therefore their project would have to meet that. And so the only portion of their project would either be stormwater or wastewater, that the funding that's been authorized by the board for base.
On the 155th Street
155th
project.
Street project.
Stormwater, but
So-
not sewer. Sewer.
Well, it'd be
was for
stormwater
Lansing.
or wastewater, so.
So I think this is benefiting our communities, and we wanted all the communities of the county to be eligible to participate. And I think this is a very fair amount.
I don't
Are
see
all
the amount.
funds already pledged right now?
It's 50,000.
50,000, okay.
We-
I need to look at this.
The funds are already
Okay. Oh,
pledged.
yeah.
We had
Never mind.
$500,000 worth of those funds that were still
I meant
eligible for
when I
matching.
was looking at a,
Didn't we pledge that to
Yeah,
Tonganoxie
exactly.
though for 222nd Kansas Avenue?
No.
For matching?
That was
Not
part of the
base
base grant
application.
that they decided they were not going to apply for that particular project. And then the base grant for application for Lansing was, we did not receive that. It was not awarded.
Right, But if these cities all of a sudden came up with their own money, would we use this money to match theirs?
So that would
For
be
these
something,
projects?
that'd be something the Board of County Commissioners would have to consider.
Well, I mean, the denial of these grants is pretty new. We don't know what their plan B is going to be.
So far, the only grant we've accepted from ARPA is the grant for the city of Basel on 155th Street. But this application was made, and we did discuss that we wanted every community to be eligible to participate.
that is true.
We also wanted every city to, well, I guess we didn't. Linwood didn't participate in the transportation study financially, did
No,
they?
it's the larger ones, yeah, incorporate.
They will benefit from
Absolutely.
anything in southern Leavenworth County.
I don't-
will benefit from that transportation.
And I don't know that they've been asked. I think they might be. I don't know if the two cities would probably be willing to.
I don't think they probably have the
They don't
financial
have any.
capacity.
Right, and they're not not a large amount.
15,000, basically 15,000, so if you went by population.
Lansing would do 30.
Yeah,
That's, okay, any more discussion on this, Doug? Any more?
no,
Jeff?
just can't support it.
Vicki, got anything else you want to bring up on this?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Wait just a second. Vicki, do you have anything?
I'm just
Oh.
thinking,
Oh, okay.
yeah, the wheels are
That's me.
turning.
That's me, Vicki.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, Mike, you wanna make it?
I'll move that we direct staff to draft an agreement with the city of Linwood for a water line project to match ARPA funds received,
Like to amount of
$50,000.
Second.
motion and a second. Any more discussion before we start the roll call? Mr. Cos?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Nay.
Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
4-1. All righty, presentations and discussion items, quarterly reports, solid waste. Come on down.
Morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. What'd you do? Oh, I guess I shouldn't ask that.
I saw it.
I'm sorry. Are you okay? I'll put it that way. No, sorry.
Don't ask.
Yeah, that's what I said. Sorry, that was rude. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's fine. In November, I was trying to find a hole in my pool liner.
Oh,
It's a good story. She took me to the other side. Sorry.
oh,
So I
ow.
tore my rotator cuff in my bicep.
Oh, dear.
Well, you need some
And horrifically painful surgery, too.
Yeah.
therapies even.
So
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Boy, you guys are just full of sunshine this morning.
It's the weather, Mark. It's the weather outside. Well,
It's
good,
actually
good
way
morning.
better than I imagined, so.
Good.
Good.
I mean, oh.
You'll heal up. Good to see you. Go right ahead.
Thank you for moving this to today from last week. 'Cause
Well, yeah.
last week, hard telling what I would have said.
Truth.
So this is our first quarter report. It's nice that it coincides with KDHE, so then I just have to do one report here. We had 2,789 tons of C&D. We had 19 tons of tires, 6 tons of special waste, and 3,633 tons of standard waste the first 3 months. It was down a little bit from last year at this time, but people are back to work, so we still had 6,717 customers the first 3 months, so. We had a backhoe issue that ended up being out of service for quite a little while, but everything is back up and running now. But the big thing is the new scale.
Yeah.
We are so excited for that. We've had nothing but positive comments, and it's working way better than we envisioned.
Yeah, I've heard that. I really have a lot of compliments.
Should have been done in 1996.
People kept saying, "What took you so long?"
I think Doug has.
You can only do what you can do. I know David has utilized it. I don't know if anybody else has, but.
So Tammy, when we first opened it up, you had provided some numbers about it was just such a huge improvement in time. Are you still seeing that?
Yes.
Especially like weekends and stuff where the
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays.
They're not to Gilman. They're hardly ever outside our gate. It's just, and of course it depends on who's in front of you, how long it takes them to unload and everything, but our commercial haulers are just ecstatic because they're not having to wait for those little, mom and pop types to come out before they can come in. And yeah, it's just blown us away how beneficial this is. Our cookie lady brought us extra cookies.
Priorities. Go ahead.
And maybe you were going to read this, I'm sorry if you were, but what you had provided to us was that before you had like a 53-minute wait for 154 customers, and after the scale, it was like a 12-minute wait. So
correct.
4 to 5,
172 customers.
Yeah, for more customers. So it's like a 5 times savings in just the wait time. That's huge, and I'm sure our commercial haulers appreciate that.
Yeah. We did the Saturday, the 5th, before the scale, and then we did the first Saturday after opening. And yeah, we're still noticing it's just amazing. Floor staff is really busy now. Yeah, we haven't had any negative comments,
Great.
to my knowledge. Other than that, things are good. Fully staffed. I was just amazed how well staff did while I was off. It's nice when you have good coworkers because then you don't have to think about it.
Absolutely.
You can just heal.
Yeah.
So they did a great job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, thank you,
He
Tammy.
got rid of his car. He got rid of that car. That's not my son.
Okay.
I'll let him know you asked about it.
Building and grounds. Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Aaron's getting ready to go out there and.
What's that?
I said Aaron's getting ready to go out there and discipline
Probably bought a
somebody.
new lawnmower and we didn't
Probably somebody who just got out of court.
Yeah.
Well, we'll start with
Go down that road.
first quarter. Courthouse crew, custodial crew is taking over the floor work in the courthouse. So we are now doing floor work in-house, no longer subbing it out. They started with buffing. We're going to work into teaching them how to strip and wax floors so that way it's in-house completely. As you guys noticed, the courthouse is blue all April.
Thank you.
it's a great spotlight for us to use a historical building as something that can shine some light on something that needs it. Community Correction Building is complete. That process is done. Now we're just slowly but surely tweaking items for their staff and that over there. EMS headquarters, Station 1, we did some carpet replacement. The lieutenant's office was pretty much thrashed, so that carpet got pulled out. I'll skip past Cushing because that's going to be a longer one. Justice Center, we relocated court services as well as city probation. That item we are still finishing up. They received new carpet in their areas as well. Cushing, we did finally hear back about our transit grants that we had applied for, and the amount that was awarded was just over $500,000 for a parking lot. Working with county administrator as well as our possible tenant on our location that we will look to put that parking lot. More information to come. I'm sure he'll share with you as we move forward. Design and demo is complete on the K-State Extension area, the crisis stabilization. We had a holdup on the crisis stabilization area from the state fire marshal. He didn't like the plans as he wanted a 2-hour rating, not just in the patient areas, but the entire section that butted up to the K-State Extension. So we had a hiccup for about 3 weeks because once they deny your plans, they don't care that you can make a quick adjustment. You have to resubmit. So we had a slight delay there, but we're allowed to do demo. We just can't put anything back. So we demoed while we were doing that. That since has been approved. And both crisis stabilization, K-State Extension, and the Council on Aging areas are moving forward. The current concern right now that I have with the building is we have sewer lines in that building that are in slab that are 100 plus years old. After we've cambered them, we have about a 4-inch pipe, which was standard back in the day, and it's about 2/3 plugged in about all of them. I've had large change orders due to we're saw cutting and removing sewer lines in slab. I've had 2 separate companies come out to make sure that we camera all of the stacks up verticals. Our problem is when we hit the tunnels and we hit the 90 in slab, we're filled with rust on most of them. I'm giving you guys this a heads up as most likely I will be back to talk about our options and where we're going to be. Not today, but as a precursor that we have seen complications with this building. It seems like every step of the turn while we're trying to make this building something that's great for the community, it's fighting us left and right. Other than that, third floor is moving along. Ross Construction's moving well. They have a tentative schedule of August to complete their area, coinciding with Sands. We're working diligently to make sure that the Council on Aging first floor as well as third floor open almost and completions almost in line with each other. The county administrator and I have been working with the current tenants owners on possible expansion. We're waiting to hear back from them. There is a lot of moving parts at that building right now. We're working diligently to spend our taxpayer money as smartly as possible, but also to make sure that we don't have any issues in the future that's going to cause a lot of problems.
I think we all knew that the building has been there for like 200 years, actually. So not in some way, shape, or form, maybe not that specific building. But we knew there was aging infrastructure in there. Not a surprise that we're running into some of these issues. We had a contingency in all of our projects. Aaron has done a great job of managing the change orders we've received to date inside that contingency. But we're at the point where it's going to exceed his contingency authorization. So what I've asked him to do is just prepare all of the change orders we've received today to bring to the board to get those authorized so that then that frees up his other contingency funds. But cheaper now than it ever will be. We definitely don't want to get tenants in there and then have sewer backups all the time and have to do this, where we have to shut down operations for any reason. So
Pay me now, pay me later.
it's just a good idea to get it addressed. So I think Aaron's got a great process in place, and when it's done, it'll be done right.
So are you prepared to give a ballpark number on that, or not yet?
No, not yet. Right now, I had Digger Jim out there once to jet it and camera it. I had JF Denny out there to camera it as well. So I had multiple independent contractors that I used our contractual agreement money in separate funds to pay for. That way I got a good look at it. It wasn't just one person taking a look at it and saying, yeah, you need to replace it all. And oh, by the way, here's my price. Working with our third floor tenant on their needs and the pipes that they're connecting to make sure that everything that is in slab or in the tunnels that we're connecting to, that future tenants are connecting to, that sooner down the line we're not going to get a, hey, I flushed that toilet and nothing's happening. I'm making sure that any of the lines that we're abandoning and we're not planning on future use, but any of the lines that we are using, our vertical lines don't look as bad as our horizontal lines. Our horizontal lines that are in slab and just so happen to be in crisis stabilization, K-State extension, and the Council on Aging are the ones that we're dealing with the most. That building actually goes out to the street in two separate areas. One way goes east, opposite goes west. It was shocking to us that the largest line in there was a 4-inch line, especially since it was a hospital. You have multiple 4-inch lines that run out to your sewer, that go into your lid, that run out, and we're working diligently to make sure that every line that we have in there we address and make sure that it's not going to be an issue later on. That's the goal. The problem is in slab work is expensive work. I talked to him about lining it. The problem with lining on pipes is every union and joint has to be reinstated, so they're cutting slab anyway. The original cost estimate on lining is anywhere from $150 to $200 a foot. And yes, I said a foot. It is cheaper for us to remove slab, replace pipe, and then fill back in than it would be for us to line with the amount of unions and 90s that you have in that area.
When you're doing the pipes, in the long run, are you upsizing them, or the way they're run,
We're
they
staying,
have to stay at the 4?
They're staying at your 4 because it kept up as it previously was a hospital. The amount of stacks that you have run down on your columns on what would be your dining hall area, well, not dining hall, but the kitchen and that long banquet area, you have 9 vertical stacks that connect into 4-inch lines that run out into 3 separate lines running across there. You have 2 horizontals that come down the hallway and work your way down. The problem is you're in slab, and you've been in slab and cast iron for a really long time. So we'll handle it. We'll make sure that it runs properly. It's just an expensive process.
Gotcha.
Sorry to bring you bad news on that quarterly, but I'd like to give you the heads up beforehand. But your courthouse is blue.
Well, the lawn looks really nice.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
There goes your lawnmower.
You guys have any other questions?
No, sir.
No, I appreciate
Hey, man,
you.
COVID saved us a lot of money
Thank you.
anyway. So
Thanks, Aaron.
Appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
You know, something important to remember on this project, which is not similar to most of our projects, is we're renting half the building out. So there's
money
going to be
coming in.
income to
Good
cover.
payback to it.
Yeah, we knew this was going to be an old building.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll get a
Have hidden
return on our
problems.
investment.
Yeah. Agreed. Thank you. More Bill.
Morning, Commissioners. We'll try to keep this as brief as possible.
Famous last
Yeah.
words.
No, we
Yeah.
say
Any questions?
we got all day.
So, the Road and Bridge, they do a great job out at the shop. I know Commissioner Stephen brought it up a week or two ago, but they do a really excellent job of responding to calls and trying to address any issues that do arise. We hauled a lot of aggregate this last quarter, which we would do every first quarter of every year as everything thaws out. We hauled 26,415 tons of rock. We did stockpile additional haydite out of the Tonganoxie Quarry for our chip and seal season, which we do every year. Usually haydite only has a limited availability due to however many contracts the quarry over in Platte County has with KDOT and MoDOT. We had several snow events, and we hauled in more salt and sand. They were fairly smaller snow events. We didn't have any huge drifting snow events, but some of the smaller snow events, as you guys probably know, use up a lot of material because you're going to treat the roads regardless of whether you got a couple inches of snow or if you got a 10-inch snow. We continuously replace culverts countywide. We did have, at the time that we put this out, 2 vacant positions out at the shop. I believe at least one of those has been filled, and another offer had been made as of yesterday. And so turnover has not been at the levels that it was in 2021, but it is still a continuous issue. We do have a lot of turnover at the shop, but we are not seeing that second half of 2021 where we had a turnover of 55 employees. So turnover has slowed down some. They do a good job of training, which is continuously getting to be a bit more difficult. We do have new CDL requirements through the FHWA that we've registered ourselves as a training facility, and we will have to track more extensively the training that we do provide employees in order to get their CDLs. And I believe this requirement of training will make CDLs more valuable. And so what we need to try to avoid in the future is becoming everyone's CDL training provider for short-term employment. And so there are a lot of private entities offering CDL training, but it does cost generally thousands of dollars and takes several weeks. And so we will be offering that through the shop as a government training facility.
What would that cost if they had to go to some other training facility?
I've seen anywhere between $2,500 and $7,500, depending on the facility.
That's kind of where I'm around the $5,000 mark.
Yeah, usually about $5,000, and it depends if you get additional endorsements.
Right.
If you get an A with a hazmat. You're going to look over $10,000. And so we do have 2 guys that are going to offer the trainings. You have to have approved curriculum that we are in the process of submitting.
But once they get it, they can go somewhere else. Right. So we got to keep that in mind when it comes to budget time. We cannot not budget training raises for employees. We've got to keep our benefits up and our wages competitive.
Yeah, we've got to stay competitive, or we'll spend way more money in training people than we will in wages. I mean, training an employee is just continuously becoming more expensive, and the type of equipment they're operating has become more expensive. I know KDOT, or the state of Kansas, has recently changed the rule on grader operators needing a CDL, but that didn't really benefit our operations of the road department because we do pull those grader operators for asphalt season and different.
Yeah. Glad the legislature spent so much time on that.
Yeah, it didn't really help us out any. And so it's important that all of our employees have CDLs, at least a Class B, and that we can pull employees as other people are off or employees move on in order to cover the voids that we do have to get the asphalt season really stretches us thin. So I'd like to thank those guys. They do a great job out there and got good leadership. Noxious weed department, we're selling a lot of chemicals, getting a lot of complaints about the pricing, which we don't control, but we do. Prices have increased substantially for some chemicals. I did provide a chart here that shows some of those increases, but some of the largest are in glyphosate and some of the other chemicals have gone up 3 to 4 times. A couple of them have gone up even more than that are concentrated chemical amounts, but we continue to offer the cost share, and we continue to bid and look for the best available pricing. I want to very briefly try to touch on some projects. We'll have a lot more of a discussion on projects, I'm sure, during the work session, so I'm only going to cover the 5 projects that we have ongoing currently. 158th Street's underway. Obviously, when you are constructing something off of some plans that originally were designed in 2003, 2004, you're going to have some changes out there on the site. We've had some minor issues with utilities, but not anything significant. Probably our largest issue right now is AT&T relocated their line, but they failed to splice in the new cabling in a lot of locations, and it is a 1,200 pair phone line. So they are currently out there this week splicing in their connection under K32. They had notified us prior to the project and led us to believe that the project was complete. But apparently, like many things with these utility companies, they have subcontractors that don't speak to each other, so they had completed design, completed relocation, but never completed their splicing work, which was unbeknownst to the person who was providing the information. We did have some issues with some phone lines that came down, or some electrical lines that came down that Evergy had approved digging around, and they were not at the depth that Evergy believed them to be at, which was a very dangerous situation that luckily no one was on the ground at the time. But we were able to get that corrected. So the project is moving forward. They have plans to pave up to the fire station from K32 as early as the mid to late May, in our hopes to move to the north end of the project the last mile after that. It'll be contingent upon dirt work and some of the AT&T issues getting resolved with their splicing. K45 is ongoing. It's the structure has been removed up in K Township. That bridge, the head walls were being installed as of last week. That is a Watershed Institute grant, and we will be receiving reimbursements for approximately 75% of that structure. We're hopeful to see that thing completed, that bridge completed in the next 45 days. They generally move through these pretty quickly. We'll have some cure time on the concrete deck, but they do move through those Husker steel bridges in a pretty rapid fashion. HP 19 on Jarbelow Road over Stranger Creeks, getting ready to start. They had an anticipated start date of May 2nd. They have not notified us of any changes to that start date. That will close a major crossing there on Stranger Creek with some traffic diversion. That is a large bridge, same type of design structure, a pre-stressed concrete truss like E58 was. It'll require a couple of cranes to set each truss. So that is a 230 calendar day project. We did recently bid F46, which is on 166th Street, North of State Avenue. That bridge won't start until later this year. It has no utility conflicts that we're aware of at this time, but it is surrounded by about every utility out there. It has gas line, phone lines, water lines, and a force main sewer line, all within 15 feet of the project. Each one of them has verified that they are not in conflict with our construction, but with the number of utilities out there and some of the varying locations and quality of locates that we have received in the past, there is concern about utilities, but we have verified with each provider in the city of Basor. The city of Basor did pothole their force main, so we do know exactly where it is. And so we are hopeful that it will go smoothly. E18, located there south of Easton, it is started as of Monday, and so they're doing demolition. They have approved demolition plans. We are hopeful that that project will move along quickly. It's a haunch slab bridge structure, so they will need to build the false work underneath the deck. That does take quite a bit of time, but they are a more economical structure than a pre-stressed truss. So we are hopeful that that project will be completed by October and get that thing finished up. We are paying for F46 and E18 out of the ARPA funds. I will go ahead and skip the rest of the projects unless you have any questions, and we can leave those discussions for the work session that we have following. We've continued to apply for grants as they come available. We were supposed to have received over a year ago our local road safety plan from Trans Systems. KDOT let a pilot project of initially 3 counties, then they did 5 counties, and then they tried to let 30 counties at once. The initial 8 counties that they completed were a year and a half behind schedule by the time they were completed, and so only time will tell how far behind they will be when they tried to do 30 at once, but I know at this point they're a year behind schedule. They have provided us the locations of our 10 highest accident rate areas that we are eligible for applying for high-risk rural roads funding for. We did apply for high-risk rural roads funding for the portion of Tonganoxie Road north of Stranger Creek. We were not successful in that, but that is not unusual. It's be unusual to receive 2 grant cycles consecutively, but we want to get our name out there and get that application in so they're aware of our intent to continue to apply for it, and it's nice to compile the information and have it available and ready to go for the next grant cycle. They generally would not award high-risk rural roads more than every other cycle because they want to phase your projects for construction windows. Kansas Cost Share program has a pending grant application out there for County Route 30. We did apply for $750,000 through that program. It was due by, we submitted it on the 8th of March. I think the completion deadline was St. Patrick's Day. They said that they would notify us by the end of April of whether we would receive that Kansas Cost Share funding, but their timelines that aren't as steadfast as our deadlines. So we will see when we do receive that information, whether we receive that fund or not. We did work, the county administrator and myself worked with the group out of the East Coast, Merchant McIntyre, to apply for some directed congressional funding for that project as well. We did receive in the last quarter the final agreement for the E48 bridge for the Kansas Local Bridge Program. That program allows for $150,000 towards the funding of a small bridge under 50 feet with under 100 vehicles per day on the roadway. And so it is specific to bridges that with low load ratings or are structurally deficient, which this bridge was both, and it did qualify for the length and the vehicles per day, and so we were able to get that funding, and we will be constructing that bridge next year within their reimbursement window. It is a locally administered project.
And that's actually going to be a bridge, right, not a ford like it is now?
It looks like a box culvert now, but it's classified as a bridge because I think it's 25 feet. And so the new structure will probably be a 35-foot bridge with some wing walls. And so it'll be some sort of simple steel truss type structure, very similar to, or if not the same as K45. So it'll be like a Husker steel type bridge, or a KDOT offers plan sets that are called KDOT low-cost bridges, but it'll be a steel I-beam structure with sheet pile head walls.
Okay, so the water won't go over the top of it like it does now?
Shouldn't.
Okay.
And with the steepness of the hill coming down, with the steepness of the hill that comes down there on the south side, it wouldn't take a lot of dirt work around the structure to be able to elevate it 2 or 3 feet. Okay. And it'll be much wider, so it should, if we go from a 25-foot structure to a 35-foot structure, it should hold a lot more volume of water without going over the road.
Yeah, that's going to be huge because this is a road that when it rains, everybody knows don't go down that road because it's just a ford. The water goes over the bridge now. So.
Part of that application was it's one of the few roads that connects Millwood Road to and all the way up to Atchison County to K92 Highway. So 192 Highway. So you can get from the state highway all the way up into Atchison County on that gravel road. So it receives a lot of agricultural traffic. We currently do still have an opening position for the project engineer that's being advertised. To date, we still haven't had any qualified applicants that meet all the job requirements. time being. We're going to continue to advertise at some future date if we do not receive any qualified applicants that have a PE already. We may have to look at changing those job requirements in order to get some additional staff in to help facilitate the construction of these projects. Training is ongoing for the survey technician. He is operating under my license currently. He's going to start taking some classes at KCKCC in order to get his surveying certificate, which would make him eventually have the minimum qualifications necessary to sit for some of his licensure tests. I believe it's a 24-hour program to get a certificate. With that certificate and 8 years of experience, you could eventually become licensed. So he is going to start down that path and at least try to get the certificate in 2 years or 4 years in and start getting his LSIT licensing. As surveyors are aging out of the profession, I've received some information from the Kansas Society of Land Surveyors that currently there are only approximately 40 or less surveyors in the state of Kansas under the age of 40, and so the demand for surveyors has become extremely high. A lot of the surveyors who are becoming licensed in the state of Kansas aren't located in the state of Kansas. They work for oil and gas companies or wind exploration companies or something, and they come into the state to get their license to write easements. I know last week we looked at some survey manager positions in Kansas City that were paying between $125,000 and $140,000. And so to date, we have not had any licensed surveyors apply for the position of county surveyor, and we've only had one qualified applicant who we did end up interviewing and was a good candidate for the job, but ultimately turned down the county surveyor assistant position that we did have open at the time.
So at the universities, do they train surveyors right now, or what? Why has this become such a problem?
It's become a problem because it used to be a survey crew would have 5, 6 people on it because you were going out through the timber and you were using different types of instruments. Now a survey crew is 1 to 2 people, depending on the project, because you have robotic total stations that follow you around with lasers. You have GPS with 45 satellites. And so the number of people in the profession due to the advances in technology is maybe 20% or less of the number of people that you had in the profession just due to the technology advances. And then the state of Kansas requires education. And so if you have an engineering-related degree like myself, you still have to have 6 years experience to get a license. You have to pass 2 federal and 2 state tests. So you have to pass 4 tests, have 6 years experience, and a bachelor's degree in an engineering-related field. And so K-State does not have a program currently, but Butler County Community College does. Kansas for an associate's, which would be an 8-year experience requirement. And so you're just not getting college applicants to want to go out into the field, walk through the timber, walk out and get the field experience necessary. And then with the stress of having to pass 4 additional licensure tests in order to be fully licensed. And so it's just a very stringent requirement that they have right now.
Or just go get your CDL and make about the same money.
Yeah, that's the requirement.
CDLs, you can go get a CDL. Some of those over-the-road truckers, or if you have overnight stays with a CDL Class A, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Make $100,000.
There you go.
And not
It's
pay
the
any student
requirements.
loans off.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, it's too bad because it's a really good. I mean, surveyor's a good profession, but it's too bad we're having such trouble.
yeah. And so currently, I've seen where surveyors like hourly billing rates. A lot of engineering firms are now exceeding engineering billable hour rates for engineers. Surveying is becoming so obsolete that those people who are in it are now at such a demand that surveying is becoming more expensive in many cases than engineering. So planning and zoning and engineering reviews for SUPs and plats are ongoing. I don't believe we've had any real issues or complaints from many developers delaying any projects. We do have a 10-day review period within the current kind of operating policy, and we have always, as far as I'm aware, made comment back within that 10-day period. Often it's within 4 days. We meet 3 times a week, and we've been processing those through very quickly. And we have had a whole bunch of them since last fall. I don't have the specific numbers. We did a year-end report where we had 40 or 50. Fleet management's ongoing. Lead times are extremely long on machinery and vehicles. We are continuously working to swap out our fleet with the enterprise fleet and working with them to make sure that we're not getting our orders kicked out of their queue and that we receive the vehicles that we have ordered. We are writing spec sheets for all of our bids and advertising our bids for 2023 in most cases now, as it's taking anywhere from 12 to 18 months to get some of the equipment. It does seem to be getting a little bit better, but depending on the type of equipment, vehicles, it's not. GIS has continued to work on a lot of different things. I'm not going to read through each one of them individually, but they are working on the road records, so we are trying to map all of our road records so they can be publicly accessed through the county website in order to be able to click on a roadway and know what the right-of-way width is and get the roadway information from the original opening records of the 1800s. We mapped FEMA information over the last quarter and helped submit some of that additional information. We did add 1 staff member. That was a replacement position for a vacant position over the last quarter, and we're hopeful that we can remain fully staffed in that department through the next year. Wrap that up. Any questions?
Oh, we're going to have all kinds of them in the work session.
Yeah,
I hope.
Okay, thank you, Bill. We'll move on with the additional public comment. Just get comfortable. We're going right back to you, Bill.
Take a little break.
We take a
2-minute break.
Let's commissioners, y'all have anything y'all want?
5.
Well, we can do your roundabout thing and then take a break. Yeah.
Vicki, you got anything before we adjourn?
You want to talk about what we did for the past week or no? Or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. I did the Mental Health Summit last Wednesday and Thursday. It was an interesting couple of days. I did discover that Leavenworth County, I mean, if we continue down the path that we're heading in the right direction when it comes to what we're doing in addressing the mental health concerns of our county.
Good.
If we continue down the path that we're moving toward. I know that JB's been working on a grant, working with our grant writers on a veterans court, and that was because they had a lot of focus on specialty courts because it was done by the OJA was the sponsor. We had the judiciary and the legislative branch were well represented. There were not very many county representatives, county commissioners. However, it appears that they're going to depend heavily on county commissioners and some of the things that they're planning to, or they're wanting to do in addressing the mental health issues. I think they've discovered that jails are not the place to deal with mental illness, and so there was a lot of emphasis on that. We even had some justices that one particular justice that shared some personal stories about her experience in dealing with a child with severe mental illness that was very impactful. Let's see. Also had that afternoon, Thursday afternoon, did LCDC, then did Port Authority and the Adult Corrections meeting, then Leavenworth City Commission last evening. They had 2 really interesting proposals for their 6th Street Cherokee project. And I think that's it.
Got JCAB tomorrow.
Oh, yep, JCAB tomorrow. And then I'm meeting with the Transit Authority on Monday morning, and then next week I'll do it again. So.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Yep. I don't have anything. Go ahead.
Just at Bayshore City Council last week. Commissioner Steve, myself spoke at the 11th County Southern Leadership class last week, and then have JCAB tomorrow in Anderson.
Mike?
The Southern Leadership last week was really good. Good group of people. Spoke to a couple of officials from Tonganoxie about the possibility that they're going to submit applications for projects on ARPA requests. Met with, I had a town hall meeting last night, had Representative Johnson there to speak, and then we answered state and county questions, addressed the tornado relief bill that went through, and folks were, Mr. Leach was there, and a lot of people were very gratified, and interestingly enough, had lots of questions on property taxes, but I didn't have any questions on zoning issues, which is a change from previous meetings. Also, having a town hall meeting at tonight at the Alexandria Township Fire Department, and my wife's making chili, so anybody that wants to drop by. Lots of questions about property taxes, and then next week we're going to the Kansas Association of Counties meeting.
Thank you. Jen?
So continuing the crusade on educating people on the taxation issues, I met with Representative Neely last week, some members of the community, meeting with Representative Proctor this afternoon. To try to get them up to speed on exactly how things work. If there's anything they didn't understand before, then they understand it then. Also, I'm having a Zoom meeting for the Rural Leavenworth, Inc. group May 3rd, more like a question and answer session. Also, a big thing that happened, I had an hour and a half phone call with Senator Tyson, and she understands the entire gamut from the procedures with the appraisal system to the application of mill levies for the budgets. She's very aware of changes that need to be made throughout the entire system. We talked about creating a task force of state officials and local government officials that also understand everything that's going on. That this task force would include experts like, I don't know if you know who Chris Courtwright is. He was an economist all the way back to the 80s. He understands exactly where the issues are. So I think it is very positive. When I hung up, I had a lot of hope that we can actually get this task force put together and get something changed where the change needs to be made.
That'd be great if you could do that.
Yeah, I haven't.
What's the time frame on that?
You know, she's running for treasurer, so
Right.
it's going to.
Well, I mean, I didn't know if it was something they could get together before session wrapped up.
No, it's going to be. It's a big fix.
I know,
So it's
but-
drawn out. So I think we need to continue down the path we were talking about, a meeting with the local officials. You know, we control about 10% of the mill levy on everybody's tax bill. If we meet with the other 90% of the mill levy setters on everybody's tax bill, and just hopefully come to an agreement, you know, this year we're going to have to take it.
But have you seen the futures on housing prices?
That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah,
that.
and so we're going to.
There's no end to it.
Yeah.
It's going to get a lot worse.
And we're in no way trying to tell the other entities that create their mill levies for everybody what to do. We just want to explain to them what the consequences could be if we don't all get on the same page and try to remain as close to revenue neutral as possible. So that's all it's about. And this task force, I think, is a great step in the right direction, but it's going to take time. So what we got to do right now for this year is figure out exactly how close we can stay to revenue neutral until we get these things figured out. This system was not designed to handle a super increase in market values like we're seeing.
Or inflation.
Just doesn't work. And the inflation.
Yeah,
and
it's
the
inflation
rates.
that, I mean,
Or supply
All goes
demand.
together.
all of those things combined
It's the
together, it's
perfect
a
storm.
perfect storm
Yeah.
right now.
For this system.
But Judge, the key thing is, too, what you're doing is, we don't need to let this die. I mean, you've got some momentum going with the right people, get this committee, and the perfect storm is probably the best way to say it, what's happening. So, very good.
I don't think the folks out in the community are going to let it die. From my experience last night at the town hall, I think folks, you know, they've been getting tuned in, but they're really tuned in now.
But they still have to understand it all.
Right, and that's what our job is, to educate. Is that? But I do think
And
if
part of
legislation
understanding
could be
is also
crafted by
listening.
this group, if they could craft some legislation, then
That's where it's
we
gotta be
can all
focused.
push. Just think how long it took to get the tornado relief through. Imagine reappraisal piece of legislation like
It's
that.
a big fix.
It's going to take
Yeah, but there's a lot
time.
more people asking questions too about it. And I think that's because we're trying to get the information out. Not near enough, but at least it's a starting point. We just have to keep it going forward. And I think this commission's trying to do that.
Well, the task force is very positive because, like
Yeah.
Commissioner Cos reported on the mental health. I mean, Leavenworth County gained because of the task force.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of good could come out of that.
I agree.
But it's the timing.
That's what I'm concerned about.
You know,
Yeah.
if the wheels turn awful slow, and pretty soon we're going to be having another appraisal, and on and on and on. And it's
We got to keep it rolling forward. Anything else, Jeff?
That's it.
Mark, do you have anything else? Yes, sir. Okay, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Let me say. You first.
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you, Vicki. We are adjourned.
All right.
5 minutes.